So, with you, Nathalie Trutmann, welcome to the Weekend Authors
Hi everyone. So, like Tachi, I'm also not very good at this. I have to do this. You know, doing, you only get better at this doing, but before I introduce myself, I just want to say thank you to Fefa, Renata, Tachi, Caio, Luciano for having me here. I'm a foreigner in Brazil. Look, I'm already getting emotional. It's one of these very emotional talks. It's okay. I'm a foreigner here. I've been here for 10 years, and the first person I met was Tachi. So it's very special to be back here, to do this cycle and then get this invitation because she has accompanied the journey. And what I'm going to share with you today is some of the journey, how the journey has been. Why am I so passionate about my journey and other people's journeys? My passion are stories. I love stories. I love books. I prefer books to people, but I have learned to be better with people. And basically, I always like to dedicate the talk to somebody. So today I'm going to dedicate the talk to two very special boys who are here today, Stefan and Pedrito. The sons of touch. Because she said I'm a great inspiration, but she's a great inspiration for me. So, this is a mother kind of thing. We get emotional with this stuff. So I'm Nathalie. I'm not going to tell you what I do because what I do is going to come through the presentation here. I'm so happy to be with such a great mixed foreigner group. I was asking a little bit about you guys' background, and it's so exciting, I think it's the first time I'm in Sao Paulo with so many foreigners, so this is really great. And how I began, what has been the center of most of my work is to understand why I am the way I am and why people are the way they are. And I came across this image 4 years ago in the internet. I was invited to do a presentation and I found this image and I was like, wow, so incredible. Somebody in the other side of the world was able to illustrate who I am. So I went searching and I sent this woman an email. She's a Canadian, a wonderful designer, and I said, look, I want this picture. I want it to be mine. How can I buy it? And we became friends. And this for me was perfect, because it illustrated this thing in my life where ever since I can remember, the only thing I wanted to do was to travel and to live many lives. And so, this is where I'm going to take you today. And I've done this work in different fronts, a lot in education, of understanding the crazy journey. We all have crazy journeys, and that's what makes us so fascinating. And I was invited to do a talk earlier this year where they asked me to do a parallel of my journey with the hero's journey. How many here are familiar with the hero's journey? Some of you? Not so many. So, well, to summarize it, I'm not so familiar either, but they say that this hero's journey theory is the background to most movies and most stories. So you have a challenge, overcome the challenge, and then you come back with your learnings. So you will see some titles here in some of the pictures, which are from the hero's journey. Not that I consider myself a hero, I consider myself a very crazy person. But I use these titles to organize this talk and to give it some sense, so it wouldn't seem like just, a whole bunch of crazy stuff put together. And so everything starts even before we start. We think we own our lives, but really, we're already product of somebody else. And I'm a product of these two crazy persons. A Swiss adventurer and a Panamanian party person. Yeah, and those people who know my parents know what I'm talking about. So they already predetermined a lot of stuff in my life. It's not like I had a choice. There was a lot of stuff that was already dumped into me. I was born in Guatemala. And this is Guatemala. Who here has been to Guatemala? Hi, where?
Guatemala City, Antigua.
Where are you from?
California.
How long ago?
About a year ago.
About a year.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, is the prettiest.
Yeah.
So these two crazy people met, married, and had kids in Guatemala. Had 4. I'm the oldest one of this family, and they debated a lot. You know, this is a picture of me very young. They debated a lot whether they should call me Brunhilde or whether they should call me Maria Dolores, which means Mary of Pain. Gratefully, they decided to call me Natalie, which is a very nice name. My mother dreamed with a movie star like Natalie Wood. She was able to convince my dad, and this became Natalie. This thing came out, and from a very early age, because they were so international, I was in airports, and I was traveling all around the world because we had family all around the world. And the airport became one of my favorite places. And making my suitcase is one of my favorite activities, and I can do it with my eyes closed because it's the best thing. And traveling in any format, even just getting on a bus and going 24 hours to a place just to get on a bus and come back, it's fun for me. You know, this is like feeling like you're doing something exciting. And then the second stage in the hero's journey is the call to adventure. And aside from these genes and this philosophy that my parents put into me, the other big thing that I can recall now looking back that had a great impact in my life is Rocky, you know, the film. Who has seen the film here, Rocky? The Eye of the Tiger. So this scene, when I was 10 years old and I was seeing this guy, you know, waking up at 5 a.m. and drinking the raw egg and running around the city, and I was like, yeah, so I'm going to be this, you know, I can be fantastic. So 10 years old, I was putting my mother's aerobics weight around my legs and running around my condominium, you know, until I was almost dropping because I wanted to be like this super powerful person. And this is something that is incredible how movies and media have this impact and stay with us very early on. Running is still one of my favorite things. I don't do it that much, but for many, many years, this image was in my mind. Another very big thing in my life was traveling and meeting people around the world. And we didn't have internet then, but I dreamed with pen pals and writing letters, and I would have friends all over the world. This was a very big thing in my life. Books, I already told you, I prefer books to friends. So when I was 10 years old, also, every Saturday my dad would take me to the English bookstore. I don't know why I began preferring books in English. And I would buy 7 books every week and read 1 per day. And I just close myself in my room and read 1 per day. So when in our high school the teacher asked for the first writing essay, I did. Who else prefers books to people? You can be proud of me. And I also developed this very strong sense and affinity for crazy people, you know. Very early on, I was attracted to people who were different. So in my high school, Guatemala is a very conservative, small place, and I was always friends with the foreigners, you know. Those ones that were a bit strange, this one I liked. I would go close to them. So this is one marking things. But teenage years. How old are you, Stefan, now? 18, and you look much better than I did at 18. Much more decent. This is me at the wonderful 18. You know, I had more serious problems to solve than listening to the adventure call, right? It was hard. I would never go back to this age. For me, the drinking, the dating, I couldn't get the rules of the game right, you know. I was always making a fool of myself. I was always, you know, like not being cool, not saying the right things. And look at this hairdo also. No, this is just awful. But I went abroad because the only thing I wanted to do was to go out of this little country, you know, get me out of here, you know, where there's few weird people. And I went to do my undergrad in California. And I was a bit lost. No, actually, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have the courage to say it. So So everybody in California was passionate for the whales and the dolphins. Who else is from California? What part of California are you from?
Orange County?
Orange County. I was in, oh yeah, Torrance, no?
Yeah.
So I went to LA first and then to San Diego, and I decided I was going to train dolphins, so I studied marine biology. And this gave me an excuse to do diving, so most of my time I was diving underwater, and just forgetting the world, you know. Instead of the books, I went into diving. I didn't have to deal with people. I went into the water. And these 5 years were wonderful, but after the university stint, I had to face reality. And if you study marine biology in San Diego, the only real job you have is working as a lab person inside a lab. And after doing this for 6 months, I decided, you know, this is not me. And I went back to Guatemala, and I had to get my first job. There was no more help, you know, it was time to face reality. And I was very, very lucky. And this is one of the other big points in the hero's journey. It's meeting the mentor. I was very lucky, and it's also a great example of how our fates and destinies are sometimes already prepared by somebody, you know, how there's stuff bigger than me. In my first job, my boss was Brazilian, and he had been transferred to Guatemala. And you know, I was in a pharmaceutical company in the most boring environment you can imagine. And this guy came in with a Mickey Mouse on his thigh to tell everyone that the most important thing in life was happiness. And I was just like, you know, they didn't tell us this in university. Why are you telling us this in this job? And this guy still is to this day, one of the most incredible leaders I had met, because he did two things. He was incredibly generous and incredibly funny. And he just opened his heart, and with this, he changed the whole company culture. Like 10 years before, people were talking about innovation. You know, now it's like in fashion to talk about innovation, but innovation, in my mind, and I think Fernanda, you spoke about this design thinking, I can't stand this either. Yeah. Innovation is very simple, and I give you some simple examples. We had a sign for when people were talking bullshit in meetings. It was like this, you know, like talking bullshit. And everybody knew when he had to have his moment, because he took the newspaper and went by whistling, telling everybody he needed his moment. And you know, it was very small things, and it changed so radically, and he led by example. And I remember like 2 months after he had gotten into the company, I was so tired of this boring structure. I said, look, I just want to quit. And he said, but what do you want to do? Oh, I want to travel around the world. Who knows? I just want to, you know, this is not for me. And he said, look, the most important thing is happiness. And big companies like this, you can use them. So if you want to travel, I'm going to help you travel. You travel for business, and then you stay more days. Taking advantage. So, you know, in the pharmaceutical industry, there's a lot of doctor congresses and stuff. So if I had a congress in Vienna, he said, oh, do you know Barcelona? No, I don't know. Stay a couple of days more and go see Barcelona, you know. It didn't cost the company anything. It was this open mind, you know, this open heart to understand what really motivated a young person at that time. And it was very good, but I was also very spoiled, because ever since it's been very hard to work for anybody else. You know, when you have this great person so young. And he was a big part, and other people that I started being close in Guatemala, for me to understand that I didn't need to go out of my country to be different. That I could be in my country, I didn't need to escape anymore. I could be in my country and be different, and do my own journey, and not need to meet standards and this. And as you know, as I told you, I like books, so I'm a big nerd, and I also did a lot of self-help courses, you know, because I was still very misadapted in the human world. You know, I still hadn't gone through the teenager phase, and in one of these self-help courses, I had a bright light, you know, I had an illumination. I said, yeah, I know. The solution to my problem is I need to buy a sailboat. And I was able to convince other two crazy friends who were as single. Yeah, we were single by Guatemalan standards. We were like 27, so we had lost the opportunity to get married. And we were lost case for society. So I said, look, we're going to get a sailboat, and we're going to be the first 3 women to sail around the world. Okay, okay. So we went, this is 5 hours from Guatemala City. Did you go to Rio Dulce?
No.
Okay. This is in the Caribbean. It's a river that opens to the Caribbean Sea. And that's where all the sailors from all over the world park the sailboats to hide from the hurricanes. And we didn't have the money, obviously, to buy a sailboat, but we said, okay, if you want a sailboat, what do you need to do? You need to go where the sailboats are and begin from there. So we went there and we looked at all these beautiful, expensive sailboats, and at the end of the day, we're talking on the deck about the sailboats, and this really young guy, really smelly hippie walked by, and he's like, oh, you guys need a sailboat. I'm selling mine. It's really cheap, come and look. And we went to look his name was Cody, and his sailboat was Soma from A Brave New World, from Aldous Huxley. And it was really cheap. It was 5,000 US, divided by 3. We could pay it. So we got on, he drove us around. Yeah, this is a sailboat, okay. It needs a new paint, it needs some new curtains. We are ready to travel around the world. A small detail, none of us had ever sailed. We didn't know anything about sailing. But this was the most fantastic adventure of my life, still to this late day, because it's 5 hours away from the city, but it's like being here. You are in a little island, surrounded by adventurers and foreigners. So it didn't matter, I could be anywhere in the world. We would take the bus at 4 in the morning on Saturdays, get here at 10 in the morning, work on our sailboat. We were surrounded by sailors who invited us to their boats. We had dinner in other boats, listened to all these stories, went to all the other marinas, and it was just wonderful. And we really believed we were going to sail around the world. We read all the books, we did all the courses, we put all of our money in here. We all had jobs, so all of our money went into this boat. But at the end of this year, in my company, I had an offer to be an expatriate. So I was like, I called my friends and said, look, I think I'm going around the world, but first by plane. But we keep the sailboat and we keep fixing it. But this was just a fantastic experience. And I got this offer, some of my friends are here, I got this offer to go to New Zealand. So imagine, Guatemala, New Zealand. So I was going around the world already. And the expatriate, right, is the position that a lot of people want. It's this fantastic position. Yeah, it was very good. I was lucky. I finally resolved the single problem. I found a guy. So this was like a big thing. Okay, we're done with that. We can keep moving. And so it was a year and a half in New Zealand. Oh, I found a guy. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Brazilian, that's why I'm here today. So you see, this thing, the Brazilian thing was already coming with me. So I found Brazilian here in New Zealand. Then I was transferred to Sri Lanka. But who here is from Sao Paulo? Yeah, fine. Who else there? Yeah. So this nice guy, very nice in all different ways, but he couldn't adapt to Sri Lanka. No churrasco, no football, only one cinema with 2 movies, dirty, traffic, Because coming from a country like Guatemala and Sri Lanka, I can tell you Sao Paulo is very advanced. A lot of people here complain about the bus system, the metro. I love it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. You have to know what you're comparing yourself to, really. So this guy didn't adapt to Sri Lanka. After 3 months, he said, look, this is not for me. I'm going back to Sao Paulo. And I said, okay, I tried to stay a bit longer. And this time I stayed in Sri Lanka was the first time that I was truly alone. In a country where I didn't know the language, I didn't understand the culture, I had to work there. And I was very lucky again because I met people who were into meditation and all this Buddhist thing, and what at first seemed very strange, when you are lonely and desperate, you do it, So I did all the meditation journey, I did all the retreat, I did everything, and this helped a lot, going into this dark side of yourself, what it is to be alone, what it is to face your fears. This was very good. And then we get to Sao Paulo, in Sao Paulo, yes. So after 6 months, the guy could come back to Sri Lanka. He had promised he would come back to Sri Lanka to spend New Year's with me. And when I called and I said, okay, so are we doing New Year's in Maldives? no, we're doing it in La Bella. And I'm like, okay, fantastic. But it turned out to be really good because 10 days after I left Sri Lanka, the tsunami hit. And the tsunami happened on a Friday, which was a holiday, which is a moon day, because when they have full moon, everybody goes to the temple and it's a holiday. And I would have been at the beach, for sure. Some of my friends were at the beach, so it was good, even though I still to this day complain that I left Sri Lanka for Sao Paulo. So we get to Sao Paulo, and yeah, one of the first persons I met that New Year's was Tachi. And this group of crazy friends, you know, who celebrate New Year's the Sao Paulo style. You know, just sitting on a deck and drinking and eating barbecue for 7 days. And I was like going out of my mind, and I was just the only strange one reading books. You know, and I was like, and they were like, oh, that girl is weird, you know, and I was just going to the room to read books. And this was very interesting because, so up to then I had a very successful corporate career, but I got tired of the corporate world and I decided, no, you know, in Brazil I'm not going to do any more multinational company, any of these, I don't like it. I want to make my own cookie and sell my own cookie. I'm going to do this. So I came here and I tried a whole bunch of different stuff. I did my bijuteria, Benedito Calixto, close to here. For 6 months, I had my little table selling my earrings and necklaces and barely making enough to pay my table, which was $200 at the time, yeah, per month. And then my husband was opening his design agency, and I said, yeah, you know, this is peanuts. I was a client already, you know, I can open doors very easily. And I did 3 years of knocking on doors here in Sao Paulo, and I had a very strong Spanish. I didn't even speak Portuguese, I think, because I didn't want to have to do grammar classes. I wanted it to happen organically. You know, I thought this is going to be for the rest of my life, so just let it happen organically. I don't want to be taking grammar classes. And this was a very interesting experience because it's very easy to be motivated and energized when you are in a company surrounded by people, but when you're sitting in front of your husband and the phone doesn't ring, you're just like, what the hell, you know? What did I get myself into? So this was a great lesson to learn about entrepreneurship, about how hard it is to start something from zero, and this is why I'm a great fan of Tachi, because Tachi and Faye are great entrepreneurs, you know? I mean, they started naked from zero, right? So this is, you know, it's the biggest learning experience to have to start something from zero. It's, yeah. Just can't imagine. Who here is an entrepreneur? No, you're not. You're an entrepreneur. He works with me. This is not. Yeah. So this was very interesting. Yeah. So here, before the reward. So, okay. So after 3 years of this not lucrative knocking on doors, already one baby, and okay, no, it's time to go back to the nice life of the corporate world. And I went knocking on doors, and I got hired by a headhunting firm here, who is very high-end. And I was, from one day of being nobody, I became everybody's best friend. All these directors and presidents wanted to have lunch with me in Sao Paulo, who didn't know me. Because when you work for these headhunting firms, everybody wants to be your friend. And I did this for a year, but I hated it. It was very, you know, you had to wear high heels, and it was an environment I had never been in. When you are somebody from marketing, you like to see, like you guys, you do projects, you like to see. And in headhunting, you only move people around, right? You only interview people. And this was in 2009 also when the big financial crash happened in the US. So from one day to the other, all positions froze. And it was also very interesting because all my life I had been a high potential in the companies. You know, I was always like the little star and pampered, and here I wasn't. I mean, my boss didn't like me. And when I would go and ask for feedback, you know, what can I do better? He would say, you know, you walk too fast. This is not good, you know. It doesn't come across well. I have a suggestion. Why don't you tie a rope around your legs and practice at home? Walking like this, you know, and I was just like, you have to be kidding me, you know. I come from companies where people run to go to one side or the other, even the president. And when the financial crisis hit, in the second cut they did, because they had to fire people, he fired me because he didn't like me. It was something personal. And this was very strong, you know. Some people say that getting fired is as the second most traumatic thing after death. That being fired is something very powerful that can happen to you. And it was. And I was furious. And I had a son at home, you know, and all these bills to pay. And I was just like wanting to kill this guy because he had been so unfair. It wasn't that I hadn't been productive. It was that I hadn't had the composure. You know, I hadn't had the look of the headhunter. And I remember that weekend I was very angry and very, you know, this rage going through my body and the unfairness, you know, and all this self-righteousness, all this stuff. And I started writing, you know how when you leave a company or a place, you write a goodbye email. So I had a light again, like the sailboat light. You know, I had this big light, and I said, okay, my email is going to be a politically incorrect farewell. And I dedicated it to my sons, my friends. And I just wrote everything. You know, using sense of humor. I just made fun of the whole thing. And I just said, you know, I confess that I have stolen candy. I confess that I haven't interviewed using your methods. I just wrote a horrible email using sense of humor. And the great thing, so this was a very horrible experience, no, this ordeal. But it was the thing that helped me find my voice. And it was the first writing I had done with my voice. I got it. This is like how I like to be. I like to be funny, I like to be sarcastic, I like to tell the truth, I like to say things that people don't normally say, because I would have liked somebody to tell me this when I was 18? Yeah. I would have liked more people to say this stuff when I was 18. So this email, this was 6 years ago. In this company, they still remember this email. It's printed, and they show it to newcomers as the girl who dared to do this, because the president was outraged and everybody was outraged, of course. But I did it, and I'm still very happy about this. And this, and then here in the Hero's Journey is the road back, because when you find your voice, when you find what you stand for, and it usually happens through something very hard, like it was for me through the firing, I started regaining all that I had lost in this entry to Sao Paulo. And and also I was looking, you know, all this time I was looking for people like me, for people who preferred books to people. Even though I love Tachi, she doesn't read so much, you know, so I didn't have so much to share with her. So I created this group, Proud Book Nerds. And I joined these 12 people I had met in different companies who love books, and there were some crazy people who even recognized the year of the book by smelling the book. They're just crazy people. And but this book, you know, when you have a group, all these egos come out. So no, this was not good enough. So we created Soup Nerds. This is my core, you know, Soup Nerd team. And how I found these people, you know, like this girl here. She was a very successful executive, but she left everything, and she was on her spiritual journey. And I had lunch with her one day, and she says, "Oh, you know, I need to hurry because I need to meet with my spiritual guide." And I was like, "Wow, where do you get one of those?" You know, this kind of stuff. Always the craziness, you know, always the open mind, always trying to see new things. And this began the road back. And she was the one who introduced me to the education industry, which is where I am right now. I work in different fronts, like Fe mentioned. One of them is FIAP, which is where Felipe also works. It's one of the best IT universities in the country and the best in Sao Paulo, we like to say. I also represent some international groups like Singularity University and Hybrid. But I never imagined in all this crazy journey, in all these ups and downs, doing bijuteria, you know, on the road and all this, that I would end up in education and working for education. But I got hired and I needed a job, so why not? Let's do it. And what really helped me here in Sao Paulo, where it's a lot about brands and who you work for and this stuff, is that I did this partnership with this university. Who is familiar with Singularity? Who has heard of it? Some of you have heard? But anyway, for those who don't know, this is a very innovative university in Silicon Valley. So if you like these short programs like you've done here, you can do a short program there also, with crazy people from around the world as well. And I got this representation for my university here, and this opened a door to what I'm doing today, you know. I don't like to do this. to speak in public. But 4 years ago, I started speaking in public, and more invitations started coming, and it's this thing that you think you're going to go one way, and then life brings you other stuff, and you say, okay, let's do it. Why not? Let's do it. And yeah, and this was very painful. I remember I had to take one of those antidepressants that make you zen for this talk. I never did this afterwards, but this friend of mine said, oh, you should take a little pill just to calm down. So I did this, and this opened a whole bunch of new doors. I work a lot with the entrepreneur startup ecosystem in Brazil. I've been to all kinds of entrepreneur events as speaker, as guest. We opened this really cool space here in Avenida Paulista. If you guys ever go to Avenida Paulista, it's this co-working space that is free for the market. And finally, I talk about the book. And in all this journey, I was dealing with young people like Stefan and a bit older, and I was seeing their frustrations and questions about what to do with their lives. And like a good book nerd that I am, I was thinking, what could have helped me, What could have made the journey less painful? And what could have been more useful to this journey? So I decided to do this handbook for young dreamers. This is not the real cover. This is what marketing did to my cover. The real cover is the first picture I showed you. This still hurts me. As a creative, this hurts me. It's like a stab in the heart because they changed my creation. But in the real subtitle was some truths that you always wanted to hear. So that was the first thing. And this was a big dream, I did it a gift to myself for my 40th anniversary. I said, okay, now I'm going to do this. Yeah, so I did. But I never knew that to sell a book, you have to do talks. So then I just started giving more motivational talks and feeling like such a hypocrite, because you wake up unmotivated in the morning and you have to stand up in front of a crowd and say, yeah, it's so cool, and it's such a great life, and this, and I was just like, this is just horrible. You have to do this all the time so I can sell my book, and you have to take your books in a luggage and sell them afterwards. You're like I was doing the same thing I was doing with the bijouteria, just with books. But okay, this was a great learning experience as well. And the greatest thing, for the launch of the book, remember the Brazilian boss I told you about? This is the guy, and he lives now in Brazil. And he came for the launch of the book, and that was very special, because he's like, yeah, you made it in Sao Paulo, you came from nowhere, Guatemala, and you're here with a book. And he's a very special guy, to this day. And that's why it's so important to have people like this in your life, at least for me, people that you can just call and you just listen to their voice, and that's okay. You think, yeah, it's good to be crazy. It's okay. There's other people. And then everything became easy, After the book, everything became easy. What had been so hard in the beginning in Sao Paulo, now I can get away with a title like this. I am Chief Magic Advisor. Chief Magic Advisor to FIAP, and everything is so easy, And I can give this talk, sharing with you my experience, and it's just, but you really have to go through all that hard stuff to find that stuff, to be able to want to share it afterward. And then a second book came out, because then I was thinking, well, why am I so crazy with money? Why I don't care about money, and I already have 2 kids, and I should be caring about money, and I should be thinking, more profitably, not giving away my books for free, like I started doing, because I was thinking, for 15 reais, just give it away. Who cares, what difference is going to make? And the second book is The Mysterious Meaning of Money, and you can see a big difference. This was self-published. I decided I wasn't going to go through the publishing house anymore, and they were going to change my product. I wanted my product. This didn't sell anything. But as a creative person, it makes me much more happy to show this than to show the other cover. This has much more value for me as a person. And I also it was very good learning experience, because with the first one, I wanted it to be a bestseller and to become famous and all this. And then after that experience, I was like, no, I just want to put out what is important to me. This was my learning process. I needed to go through this process about money. I did this. The book is out there if somebody wants to see, but it's not a big deal if it only sells 20 copies in a year. I'm not going to measure it by what the market measures success, really. So this was very good. This was last year. Of course, it's not my source of income, right? So yeah, but thank you. Yeah. But yeah, it has to be. There's a wonderful talk by Neil Gaiman that says that if you do good stuff, it's going to be there, right? But if you do shitty stuff just for the money, it's still going to be there attached to your name. So it's important to know this. Yeah. And so here I summarize. So you see, I have really done like a in-life obituary of my life. So here are some of the stuff that seemed impossible. For me, a big impossible thing was getting married. You know, I was a lost case, really. So, you know, achieving this is like, yeah, you know, finally, I'm one of the married girls. Yeah. I'm not a singleton. Even though in spirit I still feel like a singleton and act like a singleton, but that's another story. And then having kids was also like a big thing, you know. And the book was a big thing as well. You know, it seemed impossible. Some of the most difficult decisions also. To have to go back home was very difficult, but when I had my sailboat, to leave home was very difficult also. But that decision, I took it because, you know, this offer just came on the table to go to New Zealand, and it's when you have to think, well, maybe life has other plans for me than I had for me. You know, I thought I was going to go on the sailboat. I'm going to go first class in airplane. And now, looking forward, now I put my age next to it. I'm 42 now, and I think I'm beginning to try to build a solid base to begin an independent path. My dream is still to be a writer, but writing really doesn't pay here in Brazil yet. So I'm trying to build other structures to be able to do this. And so here I also summarize, you know, like the little bird who goes out of the nest. So that was the first trip to California for 5 years. Had to go back to recover. Second trip to do the MBA in Europe, 1 year, completely crashed, hated it, was a loser. And the longest trip, I have been away now, I think, maybe 14 years in total. Always going back home, but yeah, this was permanent. And then I wanted to share with you what are some of the lessons, you know, and why it's so important. I did this work for me personally, but I encourage everybody to do this work about their journeys, because I think each story is fascinating. Each one of our lives has so many little treasures and anecdotes and choices that we made, and it's important to do this. And the lessons learned. But for me, the biggest obstacle is ourselves. This monster, Darth Vader, that lives inside ourselves, who tells you, who do you think you are? You know, you're being so foolish. What are people going to talk about you? I think you need to put him in his place. Whenever this voice appears, whenever he appears, or several Darth Vaders appear in our head, you know, when these people, you know, what are you doing, this? This is a green light. This means you're going the right path. You know, when this voice appears, it means you're going the right path. When everybody's saying you're doing something crazy, yeah, this is the right path. And you know, you cannot destroy him because he's part of all of us. We all have this dark side inside, but just put him in his place. And the other big learning for me, and this has been through the books and writing, is that we are all weird, you know. Some people dress better than others. Some people are more composed than others. Some people talk better than others. Some people are more smooth. But we're all weird, and nobody knows what they're doing here. You know, we just pretend we know, right? So instead of walking around trying to hide ourselves, no, you know, I like to do this, you know. I like to be really honest, tell the embarrassing stuff, so you can just enjoy the ride with the other knotheads around you. Just have fun. The other great lesson for me has been the value of failure. I don't like it. No, I don't like it. It's painful. But if you look back at your failures, you will see that it's really the step to the next big thing. And we should be craving more failure, unfortunately. The importance of friends, right? I wouldn't be here if Tachi wasn't my friend. I don't know how many times. Yesterday I was already calling, you know, to confess my latest drama. And you need this, right? We cannot do it alone. This journey is too hard. If you do it alone, you just stay alone. You really need people. So I have, now people say, no, you know so many people. You're so extroverted. Yes, But my birthday, I want to be alone. I don't want to see anybody, not even my family. I just want to be with my books, you know? So I'm a good imposter, you know? People think I'm so extroverted. No. I just learned to like people. Our relationship with money. Money is important, yes, especially when you have kids. I was talking now with Dre, how do you pay the schools? Sao Paulo is so horribly expensive, ridiculous. Money is important, but don't make the decisions for money. In the second book I did a lot of research on the emotions around money and read a lot of interesting books. And one of the greatest things I learned is that money is actually how we express our soul. And at least I didn't learn this in school. Money is a tool we have to make physical what is inside of us. So where we put money, we are showing what is important to us. So money, a lot of money is good because you can show what is important to you. And it was like, wow, I never thought about this. So now I don't feel guilty when I buy books. Or when I give books, you know, I just buy because I am showing that books are important for me. But this was very interesting, you know, because I had never, it was more like, oh, you have to have money because that's how you needed to live. You needed to pay the bills. That had been the lesson I had digested. I hadn't digested the lesson that money will permit me to express who I am. And the more money I have, the more I can express who I am. So this was very important. And it seems that in the beginning, the first coins, they had gods in the first coins because in the beginning they knew how sacred the role of money was in our lives when money started. The uncertainty of life also was a big learning, seeing that, you know, you think you control things, but you don't even control your birth. Somebody did it for you. Somebody put you in a country that you didn't get to choose, with a family you didn't get to choose, so we don't control anything. And we just fool ourselves when we think we do. But we can celebrate our small victories, and we must celebrate our small victories. The first one, learning to go to the toilet. Yeah, we forgot that once this seemed impossible, and now we all do it, like in second hand, you know? Like when we were little, we didn't think this was possible. Sense of humor, well, I already showed through my presentation from me. You know, here in Sao Paulo, for those who are not from Sao Paulo, dermatologist and therapy. Everybody goes, especially the girls, no? It's like maintenance. And I'm like, who needs therapy? Just have sense of humor and crazy friends. You can save 600 reais per session now, whatever the cost is. And also something else. So, okay, you write the book, you know, for those who dream of writing the book and you think, okay, I reached nirvana, you know, I can just be happy now. And no, then the next day you wake up and you're depressed. So, you know, I found this great quote that says that success is a daily rent. You have to pay every day. It's something, I mean, you never rest really. It's working all the time on this. The road is not straight. And this also has been the latest big discovery for me. And also I was talking with Rina. The rescue of the feminine. For so many years, I criticized my friends who were stay-at-home moms. And I thought it was so boring, and I thought they were such losers. You know, they're staying at home and not doing anything. But when you have kids and you see how important it is for them, the mother, all of what the mother does, but still is the mother who carries most of the stuff. In China, I heard they have a great saying. There's people from China here, no? China. They told me there's a saying that there's a book called Half the Sky, no? They say that women carry half the sky on their back. Or there's a book who used this phrase, yeah. They carry half the sky, really. It's in us also. Women don't feel, they don't feel good, you know, about not taking responsibility. Not that men don't take responsibility, but it's, yeah, the man can go out of the house, close the door, and not feel guilty. We live with guilt. When you have kids, you just live with guilt. All the time it's guilt, 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 guilt. I was guilty because I brought my kids here the other time. Now I'm guilty because I didn't bring them and Tachi brought hers. You know, it's like, no, it doesn't stop. And these are my two kids, and now it's this thing, you know, we have to rescue and value the feminine with all this woman liberation and all this, us women going into the professional world. I would really love to see more stay-at-home moms giving these talks, because their hardest job is to be at home. I mean, this is easy. To go out of the house and work on your computer is really easy. But stay at home, and I think that's society, everything. So this has been a new route that I've taken because I thought, you know, this you cannot outsource. This is the most important, and this is what builds the future. And with the stories, because I have realized how important documenting the journey is. I try to keep a diary for my kids, Francisco and Santiago. They are 7 and 4, and they cannot write. But already what is happening to them is influencing their future. So I try to keep a diary, you know, as if they were writing, of important milestones, so at least they can go back, maybe when they get to their teenage years, and they have something to understand why they are complicated or crazy, or why they can't make up their minds. And yeah, this changes everything. How many people here have kids? Only 2? Only, no, 3, yeah. 4, yeah. So that's it, you guys. With that, I have a video. Can I show? So I have a great video that I always like to show because for me it's the best way to show.
Beautiful friend, this is the end, my only friend, the end of all the elaborate plans,
this video because this is the journey. This is every day, every week, every month, and the better you get to getting up, it gets easier and more fun. So thank you. And I think you have some support.